Do-to-do, watching videos, do-to-do. Oh, hi! I didn't see you there. I'm YouTube cook Adam Ragusia. Are you like me? A millennial with a weary, battered soul, and you long to feel safe again? To feel like there are grown-ups in charge who aren't you? Well, you can step right back into the comfort of Grandpa's kitchen, right now, right here on YouTube, where Jacques Pépin is still waiting to make you some eggs.
Hi, I'm Jacques Pépin, and I'm cooking at home. I want to show you how to make scrambled eggs. Scrambled eggs, my way or the classic way. I'm doing a little bit of a garnish here. You don't have to, or you can have all kind of other things. Here I have a couple of mushrooms.
Jacques Pépin is the longest tenured celebrity chef in the US. I would call him the GOAT, but in my opinion, that title goes to his longtime collaborator, Julia Child, and I'm guessing Jacques himself would agree with me on that. But Jacques Pépin is number 2. And the thing about him is he's still with us at 90 years old. He's dropping fresh content on his YouTube channel, cooking in the same modest Connecticut home that he's lived in since 1976.
The whole concept of the cooking at home was, first of all, he was going to drive my mother absolutely insane if he didn't have a project.
During the
pandemic.
Claudine Pepin, as she naturally pronounces it, is Jacques' daughter, and Raleigh is her chef husband. And yeah, during COVID, they got Dad doing some basic recipe videos at home. And they just kept going, and now there is a treasure trove of these things. What I love is how incredibly unpretentious they are. This is one of the greatest classical French chefs of his generation. He was personal chef to Charles de Gaulle, for God's sake, and now here he is telling us what he really does at home at 90.
Very often I go to the Chinese restaurant, Japanese restaurant. I always end up taking the rice leftover at the end. And I want to show you how to do a kind of a fried rice or a mixture of rice that you do.
He loves Chinese restaurant takeout. That's his thing.
Claudine confirms that Jacques Pépin does not, repeat, not DoorDash. He gets Chinese takeout or he cooks.
A little bit on top. And this is it, my leftover fried rice. Happy cooking.
That dish look good to you? Guess what? JP don't care what you think. That rice is not for you. When you cook at home for basic sustenance, not to have a little project, not for fun, not to impress anyone, but just to feed yourself. When you do that multiple times a day, you just get much less precious about it, even if you're Jacques Pépin, especially if you're Jacques Pépin. This is a man who's had nothing left to prove for more than half a century. Let us do a close read of this pork recipe.
Filet of pork are available at any market. They are relatively inexpensive. They are very tender, very moist, very lean.
Okay, so he's cooking filet of pork, and the first thing that he emphasizes is how lean of a cut it is. Jacques has a habit of mentioning the calories of the food that he's cooking, with specific emphasis on fat. In a way, I find this comforting because this is the way that people talked about nutrition during my formative years in the 80s and 90s. Today, we understand that too much fat absolutely is bad for you, but fat is not the nutritional final boss that it was made out to be. It's more of a level boss. Just like today, we have a more nuanced understanding of salt. Salt is not always bad for you, which leads me to thank Element, sponsor of today's video. As someone who works out really, really hard, I have had the experience of not having enough sodium, and it's awful. You get fuzzy-headed, you get tired, you get kind of clumsy, and you need to replenish that salt with perhaps a tasty beverage. Element is perfect for athletes or people who are fasting, because much of what makes you feel bad when you're not eating is low electrolytes. Element is also perfect for people on keto diets, low carb, paleo, anything that eschews the normal processed foods that most people eat all the time and are packed with salt. If you take those away, you might need to focus on getting your salts elsewhere. Hit my link in the description to check out all of the different flavors. Drinkelement.com/Adam. You can get a free sample pack with any purchase. I like the classic citrus, but the raspberry's really good too. Drinklmnt.com/Adam. Thank you, Element. Anyway, We were talking about my man Jacques Pepin and how he still talks about calories and fats kind of in the way that people did in the late 20th century, and I find that oddly comforting.
You're absolutely right to attach that to the 80s, because when he was shooting the Today's Gourmet series, that was very, very popular in common culinary culture to talk about nutrition and nutritional values. And so they really amped that up when he was shooting Today's Gourmet. And so he got in the habit of talking about whether things had calories.
And so salt, pepper on top of it.
It is, of course, funny that Jacques is talking about this while he has a lake of butter popping in the pan next to him. He is a Frenchman to the end. Also, notice that he did not wash his hands before grabbing that lid. You see it in all of these vids. He touches the raw meat or whatever, and then he just wipes his hands on the cloth. I would get so roasted in the comments if I did that today on YouTube. Not here to be the food police.
He's still alive, and so are we. So,
Yeah, that is an example of literal survivorship bias, but it reminds me how neither of my grandmothers worried that much about sanitation in their kitchens. It was really the public health scares about E. coli burgers in the 80s and 90s that got the word out and got people like my parents washing their hands in between every operation. JP didn't have time for that in professional kitchens, and he didn't have time for it recording hours of recipe content live to tape, meaning almost no edits, the way they used to shoot it. You gotta keep things moving in that context, and Jacques Pepin is actually much more careful about cross-contamination than maybe it might immediately seem.
If you really watch, you'll see that he naturally goes from dry to wet ingredients, right? There's a progression there. And also, if he picks something up, he'll tend to not pick it up. He'll pick it up with like these two fingers that didn't ever touch the weird wet whatever. There are several different tricks to the trade in doing that because he moves quickly and efficiently.
In the butter. And I will cover it at least partially like this so it doesn't splatter too much.
Lids! It's amazing how few people use lids on frying pans anymore. That used to be really common. Almost every kind of skillet used to come with a lid. I suppose the current emphasis on extreme browning argues against using the lid and thereby trapping steam. Steam doesn't brown things, but you'll notice that he's leaving a crack open for some steam to escape, and his kitchen is certainly much cleaner for it.
Then we'll do a sauce with prune. Pork and prune go very well together.
Oh, prunes. You don't see prunes much anymore. Dried plums. In the late 20th century, prunes were heavily advertised as a home remedy for constipation, probably because of the fiber content and the naturally occurring sorbitol. I think of prunes, I think of these classy southern belles that Sunsweet cast for their commercials in the 80s. Look at her. She knows this is going to fix her little problem right quick. Anyway.
And I have about 10, 12 prune here. About half a cup of V8 or tomato juice you can use.
V8 as a sauce base! I just did that in a recipe video the other day, and I probably absorbed the idea from sitting on my parents' living room floor watching Jacques Pepin on public television, because it was one of the only channels that we could get on our antenna. V8 was heavily advertised as a health drink in the late 20th century.
And some garlic. Yeah, I can grate the garlic on this here.
What is up with that grater design? Jacques' kitchen is filled with all kinds of quirky, forgotten appliances that companies probably sent him through the years. Lord knows people send me all kinds of unsolicited junk. Imagine if he were Jacques Pepin. I love when he pulls out some weird yellowing plastic food processor or something that's been in one of those cupboards for decades, along with God knows what else.
At one of our recent events, we put up an auction item that we called Jacques' Kitchen Treasures. And we had a couple of really nice things in there, like a really lovely copper pot that came, from his kitchen. But we also dug through the cupboards a little bit, and I found this set of McCormick food color dyes that were literally 50 years old. I recognized the script and the little colored hats, the pointed colored hats that were on top of those little squeeze bottles.
It's yes, and you too can own this.
The winner of that auction item was oh my God, did you really take that from his kitchen? And has it been there for 50 years? I'm yes, it has, in fact.
My parents used to have that exact same box of food coloring, and we may have used the same box for my entire childhood. I bet some of those dyes are illegal now, but I bet that you remember some weird pantry item that you visited like an old friend every Christmas in your grandparents' kitchen when you would open up that one cupboard.
So you see, I have a good 2 teaspoons maybe of garlic.
Another thing you'll notice in these videos is that Jacques gives measurements for almost everything, even the stuff that he is clearly just eyeballing, and he always gives it in the standard measurements of his adopted homeland. Those US standard measurements are now fading into obscurity, as they should. It's time to join the global metric party. But even when JP is eyeballing something, he gives a quantity. Why?
Coming to the United States, one of the first jobs he had, one of the big jobs he had, was working for Howard Johnson's. And he was in their development kitchen. Imagine the measurements.
Actually,
and then writing books. You have to give a measurement.
Exactly.
And I love that he doesn't say salt and pepper to taste.
I really loathe recipes that say salt and pepper to taste, because if you're teaching somebody how to cook, they don't know what it's supposed to taste like.
Right.
I'm mugging for the camera right now because, as you may know, I almost never give measurements for salts, unless it's in a baked good, which can be kind of hard to taste before it's done. I give almost no measurements at all in my own recipe content. Part of that is that I'm not publishing cookbooks like Jacques did his whole life. Traditional publishing is all but dead, and I can make way more money just making videos. And the videos we make today are much clearer and sharper and close up. And as a result, you can clearly see about how much salt I put in there, and that gives you a starting place. Back in JP's day, it was amazing how little you could see the actual food in a food show. Food shows were mostly shot from really far away, like a multi-camera sitcom. The lighting was on the host's face more than the food, and TV was standard definition. All TV looked blurry until HD became the standard in the early 2000s. Today on YouTube, you can see the individual flakes of salt as I am throwing them in there. And that is just a really different context for making food content. JP is old school, and I love him for it.
And that would be good, of course, with a pasta or a rice or something like that. A bit of chive on top. And here we are, our fillet of pork.
Look at that. No starch for thickening, no Monte au beurre. Just slap the food on the platter and eat it because it's for you, not for Instagram.
With prune and tomato sauce. Happy cooking.
Happy cooking. This man has lived in the US since the Eisenhower administration, and he still steadfastly refuses to pronounce his H's. That is so boss.
Hungry, really hard.
And sheet pans always bring out a giggle.
Yeah.
How does he say sheet pan?
Well, a little more like an I than 2 E's.
Little shit pan.
Now, some of these cooking at home videos are on the YouTube channel of KQED, which is one of the many public TV stations that Jacques has worked with through the years. Some of them are on the channel run by the Jacques Pépin Foundation, which Raleigh and Claudine run. They do culinary education for people who might normally have trouble finding a job, people who have been incarcerated, for example. It's really great work. And it's the foundation that produces these cooking at home videos. The content is relatively fresh, but they've not shot anything so far this year. JP's wife died in 2020. He talks about her sometimes in the present tense in these videos, and it's not always clear if that's because the video is old. He's getting up there himself, living in that house all alone.
Raleigh and I are going to be moving there in the summer, and so because he's 90, he's earned our care.
Is he in pain all the time?
Yes, he is. It's awful, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, Jacques' right arm never really recovered from a car accident he barely survived back in '74. You can see him struggling with it as he cooks once you know to look for it. Life is fragile and nothing lasts forever. But Jacques Pépin has lasted for about as long as anyone could, and he will still be here waiting for us in that kitchen in Connecticut long after he is gone. It makes me wonder if someday I will be a comfort item for somebody who grew up watching me cook, me and the other bozos on YouTube. Well, as long as this website is here, so shall we be. Happy cooking.